Hey there, giant fans of fun. It's Thad the Theme Park Giant, and today I'm coming to you from my office to provide a tutorial and be-all end-all guide to getting a virtual queue at Walt Disney World. If you're not familiar with the virtual queue system, it was introduced a few years ago, typically for the newer e-ticket attractions at the property. What they do, they don't have a standby line when it first opens for maybe the first year or so. It depends on the ride, but you have to get a spot in a virtual queue, so that'll hold your place in line. If you don't get a spot in the virtual queue in line, the only other way to typically ride is by buying an individual Lightning Lane Plus, or sometimes it'll be on the multi-pass and you can get a return time using that as well. But this is specifically to go through all the details of the virtual queue and also a tutorial on how to get the virtual queue. If you follow my process, I guarantee that you will get a virtual queue for whichever ride and whichever queue, because there's different queues that open up throughout the day, but I guarantee you will get a virtual queue for the ride that you want. Within this guide, I'll have it broken down into sections so you can go by the chapters and only watch what you want. If you want to know all the details, because I do get somewhat technical with this, I have a technical background, so I understand things at that level. But if you're not interested in that, you can go right to the tutorial, see how to do it. But if you're interested in all the other info, I'm going to have different sections available throughout this tutorial video. Some of the sections we'll be covering here: what is the virtual queue system and how does it work? What rides are currently on the virtual queue system at Disney World, because it is an ever-changing thing. Every few months you might see things roll on and off. What time the queues open. Right now there are 3 different times where you can get virtual queues, so we'll walk through all that. For each of those queues, there are different rules around those times. So I'll also go in depth on those, because the 7 a.m. is different than the 1 p.m. So I'll walk through all of that for you so you understand. I'm also going to do a tutorial to show you how you set up your party for the virtual queue and how you actually go in and get the virtual queue as well. I'll walk through all that process in this. I make it very simple and easy to understand, and you can always leave any comments or questions in the comment section and I'm happy to answer. So what is the virtual queue system at Walt Disney World? Essentially, it's a placeholder for you to get a spot to hold your place in line, and then you'll get called throughout the day. You get put into a boarding group and they call the boarding groups throughout the day. So within the My Disney Experience app, there's an entire section around the virtual queue. So you'll want to familiarize yourself with that before you go on your trip. It's very simple, but we'll walk through it real quick here. Inside the menus of the My Disney Experience app, you'll see the hamburger menu, as I'll refer to it, down here in the bottom right corner. If you tap on that, it'll open up a ton of different menus, like your main menu here. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a virtual queue menu. If you go into that, now you're in the actual virtual queue area of the My Disney Experience app. You'll want to join the virtual queue. It's going to give you that option. And then what happens is it's going to open up all the different parks and other possible virtual queues that may be available. So I say that because right now it's just Epcot has Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and the Magic Kingdom has Tiana's Bayou Adventure. But you may see things like when Run Disney, they were just here, the marathon weekend was last week. They had virtual queues for some of the merch, things like that, that you have to get into if you want to be able to go buy those and not wait in the standby line. So you will see those opportunities pop up. I'm not going to talk about those. They'll work the exact same, but I'm more interested in the actual attractions within the parks. So once you're in there and you've picked your park and which ride you want to get the virtual queue for, there'll be a few more things that we'll walk through later on in the tutorial, which includes setting up your party, and then actually getting the virtual queue. As I mentioned, they periodically swap out the rides that are on the virtual queue system, but currently it is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot and Tiana's Bayou Adventure at the Magic Kingdom. In the past, we've had things like Tron, Light Cycle Run, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood Studios was on it for a couple years. It was very popular, but as new rides are rolled out here the next few years, because there is a lot of new stuff coming, you'll see those rides get put right into the virtual queue system as they reopen or as they open if they're a new ride. So there are 3 different virtual queue times that you may encounter on your trip. The first one we'll talk about, and the main one, in my opinion, is the 7 a.m. Virtual queue window. This is basically the main one. A lot of people, when they wake up, they're going to be on their phones in their room, at 6:55 being ready. Because right at 7, that window is going to open up and you want to be in it. There's also a 1 p.m., which is for a later afternoon. Maybe you're arriving late. Maybe you've gone to Epcot in the morning and you're going to Magic Kingdom in the afternoon to hop over. You can get a Guardians virtual queue at 7, and you could do the 1 p.m. for Tiana. But there are rules around that, and we'll talk about that as well. And then the final window is for deluxe Walt Disney World Resort guests. Occasionally, you will have nighttime deluxe extra magic hours, and when they do that, if it's at a park that has a virtual queue attraction, they will open a virtual queue up at 6 p.m. for that special, event, the extra magic hours. So we'll also cover that. All right, let's go over the rules on the 7 a.m. and kind of the 6 p.m. deluxe return virtual queue window as well, because a lot of the rules are similar. I'll do a quick little extra thing for the 6 p.m. Deluxe virtual queue because there are some exceptions for that. All right, with the 7 a.m. virtual queue, the main rule around it is that you have to either have a ticket for the park on that day, or if you're an annual pass holder, I have to have a park reservation for that day because annual pass holders have to get park reservations. So that's your first requirement. So when you buy your 4-day park hopper or whatever, you're going to have it assigned to you in your My Disney Experience app. You'll pick your days that, I'm going to go to Epcot on, January 20th or whatever. And once you do that, then on, for instance, January 20th, when I come in at, 6:50 that morning to kind of start setting things up, it's going to know, okay, I have a ticket for Epcot that day. That means I am eligible to join that virtual queue. It will prevent you, if you have a Magic Kingdom ticket for that day, or if I have a reservation for Magic Kingdom that day and not Epcot, if I go into the Epcot area, it will not let me. It'll tell me I'm not eligible because I don't meet the requirements. So the main requirement for the 7 a.m. is that you have your park ticket assigned to the park that day, or you have your annual pass holder reservation set up. With the 6 p.m. deluxe, it is a little different. You need to have a park pass that allows you to go to whichever park is having the deluxe hours that night, but you don't need to have it assigned or anything, because at that hour, like, the hopping and everything is recognized, so like you don't have to have a park reservation. It'll know that you're a deluxe guest and that you have an active ticket for that day, and it'll allow you in there. Now, one other thing, typically with virtual queues, if I get the 7 a.m. for, we'll say I'm going to the Magic Kingdom, and I get Tiana's Bayou Adventure at the 7 a.m. one, I can only ride Tiana once per day. So I can't ride it at 10 a.m. and then at 1 p.m. re-enter the Tiana virtual queue because you only get the one ride in the virtual queue. Now the exception is you can ride twice with the deluxe magic hours at night. So even if you've ridden it, even if you're currently holding one, because that also messes with things, which we'll talk more about with the 1 p.m., but you are fine. The 6 p.m. is a little looser with things, so you'll get that second one even if you're already holding one that you haven't cashed in yet, or if you rode one earlier in the morning. That's the biggest difference between those. Now with the 7 a.m. and the 6 p.m., you can do these from anywhere. You don't have to have been in the park before the 6 p.m. Window opens. You could have been at your resort all day. You're still fine. That's the exception between the 7 and the 6 versus the 1 p.m. queue, as we'll deal with a little more. But the 7 a.m. and the 6 p.m. are very easy. You just have to have a ticket that says you can go to that park on that day. All right, let's talk about the 1 p.m. window because it is a little different. So the 1 p.m. window, the main requirement is that you have entered that park at some point before 1 p.m. and you have not hopped to a different park. So Disney's official stance with the 1 p.m. window is you have to be in the park at 1 p.m. in order to do it. So if I want Tiana's Bayou Adventure, they say you have to be in the Magic Kingdom at 1 p.m. I'm here to tell you that that is not true. They do not have any GPS like zoning on anything. They don't really know that you're in the park at that exact moment. They're not tracking you to that level. What they look at is your scan from your Magic Band or your park ticket at the park entrances. So if I've scanned into Magic Kingdom at some point that morning, even if I've left, even if I've come home or like back to my resort for a break, you can enter the 1 p.m. queue from those places, regardless of what Disney's website says. I think that's a big clarification to make because I think a lot of people think they have to be in the park at 1 p.m. You see that a lot in the online forums and things like that where people will argue with you, but I have tested this out. I have a whole 1 p.m. video you can go look at where I actually go to the park, show like I'm scanning in. I went to Epcot, then I went to Magic Kingdom to show like it tracked that I went to Magic Kingdom and I could do it from home. So I'm going to pop that up here because that's a little different than all of this video, but just to show that I went and did that, you can check that out as well. But with the 1 p.m., the biggest thing you need to know is if you want to ride, something at Epcot, you've had to go to Epcot before 1 p.m. and you cannot have gone to a different park after that. One other exception with the 1 p.m. virtual queue. So in this use case, let's say I wake up at rope drop. Well, I wake up at 6:45. I get a virtual queue for Guardians of the Galaxy at Epcot at the 7 a.m. virtual queue window. I go to the park at 9 a.m. I ride it. I'm fine to get another virtual queue at 1 p.m. for Tiana at Magic Kingdom if I want to go over there. Now, one sticking point, if I have a virtual queue for Guardians, but it doesn't get called or I don't ride it before 1 p.m., I can't go to Magic Kingdom and get a Tiana virtual queue because I possess a virtual queue already, even though it's not for Tiana. You cannot have a 7 a.m. virtual queue for one and a 1 p.m. and get a 1 p.m. for the other unless you've ridden the 7 a.m. one before the 1 p.m. window opens. So basically, if I'm going from Epcot to Magic Kingdom, I need to have ridden this by probably noon so I can get on the monorail or drive or whatever and get over to Magic Kingdom and get over and check into the park by 1 p.m. so I can do the 1 p.m. virtual queue. But I want to make sure you understand you cannot possess a 7 p.m. and a 1 p.m. at the same time. It will prevent you from getting that 1 p.m. But again, if you've ridden your 7 a.m. one before the 1 p.m. window opens, you can get that other ride. One other official Disney stance that you'll hear is that there's a 1 hour return window from the time that your boarding group gets called. That is a bit of a flexible situation depending on the attraction and depending on the timing of things. So I'll explain. When Guardians of the Galaxy first got put on the virtual queue system, they were very strict. If you missed your hour, unless it was in the first couple hours of the day, because they understand you may not get there right at rope drop or whatever, but they would not let you ride. Tron was the same way, where the 1 hour window was enforced until a little later, right before Tron came off. They would let you show up later throughout the day, but they would not let you show up for like a night ride if you had an earlier time. So it's not always like set in stone. Like right now, I'd say the last year and a half, Guardians has been completely flexible. I've never been turned away. I always tell them, hey, I'm late. You know, I've been like 10 hours late before. They still let you on. When you scan in, it will turn blue instead of green if you're outside of your window, but they can easily override it. They don't have an issue with this, but it is per ride. Tiana is the same way right now. You can show up late. They are not enforcing it. So just know that even though the official line from Disney is the 1 hour window, I have never seen anyone turned away, at least on the current attractions. I'm not saying that won't change when other things reopen or new e-ticket attractions are added to the virtual queue system, but just kind of keep your eye out on that as time goes on. But currently, as of January 19th, 2025, Guardians of the Galaxy and Tiana do not enforce that 1 hour window. When you're dealing with the virtual queues at Walt Disney World, one thing you need to understand is how their servers work. My background is in software. I was a software developer for about 25 years before I left the corporate world and moved down here, and I'm trying to do this now. But so I understand a lot of these things at a more technical level. So servers run off of UTC time, which is this global universal time. Now, that universal time is usually set using atomic clocks and things like that. So what most servers do, well, pretty much all servers do, they are periodically pinging these UTC servers or world clocks, basically, to be updated like down to the 100th of a second. So basically, whenever a server is doing anything, it's probably checking in and pinging with the world clock to make sure it's up to the millisecond. And that is how we can know exactly when 7 a.m. happens with the virtual queue. Now that I've explained the entire world clock situation and why that's important, that is essentially what guarantees us that we know the exact moment to hit that button and guarantee that we're going to get that virtual queue, as long as there's no technical issues. I have had technical issues once. Something happened with the server. I got an error. That's the only time I've never gotten a virtual queue. So you can feel good about this process, I promise. So when I talk about that world clock, one of the things we're going to be using during this process is a website called time.is. Now I'm going to show you it here in my office. I've got it up on my desktop on my monitor, but essentially it's just a clock. But this runs off of the world clock. So you can actually see here, this device was 0.046 seconds ahead, but it fixed it, whatever. So like that just shows you how accurate this site can be for the actual time. So we're going to use this as our guide of when we hit that refresh button in the virtual queue area, and then that will allow us to enter into the virtual queue and get a spot. All right, this next part, I'm actually going to show you in the My Disney Experience app how we go through and create the party and we get the virtual queue. This process works the exact same whether it's the 7 a.m., the 1 p.m., or the 6 p.m. virtual queue, so I'm not going to make specific things for that. Just understand this works generically across all different virtual queues. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is come into the My Disney Experience app. You'll have to download that on your phone, create a whole login for it if you don't have the account, because you're going to need that anyway. Your tickets will be assigned to it. You're going to want to use the app while you're in the park, all those things. Now, what we're going to do when we come in here, we have to go into the hamburger menu here. We're going to go down to the virtual queue menu, and this is going to open up this My Queues. You're able to join the virtual queue here, so we're going to do that. Now, when you come into this menu, you can choose Magic Kingdom or Epcot. As you can see here, Magic Kingdom is for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Epcot is for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I'm going to Epcot this morning to ride Guardians with a couple friends, so that's what I'm going to be grabbing. Now, the first thing you do, obviously, pick Epcot. You're going to confirm your party. Now, one quick note, if you're a single or like park hopper, ticket holder, you don't have to worry about this next part I'm going to talk about, but your ticket will be assigned to a park on that day. As an annual pass holder, I have to make sure I have a reservation for Epcot on the day I'm going. Now, to add another level of craziness, today is a no reservation necessary day for annual pass holders, so I don't need to do anything. So I can just come in here, I'm going to confirm my party. It's going to add everyone in here for me because all my friends with annual pass holders qualify, and I have quite a few of them. I'm just going to pick me for now, and that's how you pick your party. Now, you can go through and like add other people, things like that. I'm not going to show you that. You can probably figure that part out. So, but that's how you get your party set up. I would do that probably 10 minutes ahead of time if you've never done it, just to make sure you're not scrambling, because this can be a little hectic if you're rushing things at the end. Okay, so here's that time.is site that I told you about. I bring it up on my laptop at home. Now, if I'm on my phone, it brings up an ad there, but I switch back and forth between it. But right here at exactly 7 o'clock, I'm going to hit refresh, and boom, we have group 10. There you go. It is just that simple, folks. Group 10, easy as you can possibly imagine. Okay, so we've walked through how to get one for Guardians. I'm going to show you quick just how it works with Tiana. It's the exact same process, but I want to at least show it and let people understand that, yes, I'm not lying to you, but you can do it for Tiana too. And then I'm also going to show on this one, so the first one I showed where I use my desktop computer to do the time.is, so I am using two different devices for it. But if you're alone, like I'll show you on this one how I flip it back and forth on my iPhone. I am not an Android user, so I'm not sure how you flip between apps on an Android. I can't help you with that, but I know on the iPhone you kind of swipe up from the bottom and it'll bring up all the different apps and you can pick from there. So it's easy to swipe between them. What I do, I start to count down kind of mentally with the clock at about 10 seconds until it goes, and then 3 seconds before I flip over and just keep a mental 3, 2, 1, and right at 0 I do the refresh and come in and get my virtual queue as you see here. And we end up, I was a little slow this day, I got group 27, but that's still going to get you on probably as long as it opens at rope drop, you're probably going to get called before 9:30. So still early, you're not going to wait, well worth it. Definitely works just the same as Guardians. All right, giant fans of fun, that is going to do it for this tutorial. I know it's a lot of information. I know I blabbed a lot. I know it's probably more detail than you've ever wanted to know about the virtual queues in your life, but I'm of the belief that you give people as much information as possible and let them sort it out. But regardless, I know that if you follow this, you're going to get a virtual queue. I guarantee it. You'll probably be in the top 30 groups, and you're going to have an awesome start to your day because of it. If this has helped you at all, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment that it helped. That all really helps. I did a video like this about 1.5 years ago. It's one of my biggest videos, but I wanted to update it now that I'm a little better with this stuff and know a little more too. But I know hundreds of people have commented on that to say thank you so much. So I'd love to hear that this helped you. Share it with other people because the virtual queue system is super stressful for a lot of people, and I'm here to say that it should not be, and with this method, you're not going to have to worry. All right, I'm going to quit yapping. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for coming to the channel. Thanks for subscribing, all that stuff. It is really appreciated. I'm going to get out of here and probably go to a park now, but again, thanks for watching. Get out there and make it a giant day of fun.